Hopping in here, but we're excited to see you all here on this overcast day, but non-rainy day here in Eastern Iowa, or for wherever you are. Hopefully the weather's a little bit better. It's not snowing yet, but I I did see that potentially on the calendar for Sunday. We're Iowans, we're tough, we'll be all right. My kids are little weenies though, and I'm afraid of that run for schools event that's on Sunday morning. So be aware if you are impacted by that route, that does happen, but it is a great fundraising opportunity and activity for our local school district. So those that do not know me, but I think I know all of you by now, but I am Jessica Andino. I am the executive director of the Johnson County Affordable Housing Coalition. I have been in this position now, oh my goodness, since February, and it sounds like I'm getting to know more of you. Hopefully you do get to know a little bit more about me. But during this time, we have continued to establish our coalition monthly community meetings presented by our key sponsors, Green State Credit Union and Hills Bank. So thank you very much. We also each month invite community guest speakers, and this month we are blessed to be able to have Simon Andrew of the Housing Fellowship here, and he's going to talk about the amazingness of affordable housing that they do for our community. As I click forward, there we go. I also like to have a lot of transparency with the community that we're serving, including our members and individuals at large. So you can take a minute here to read about our October community updates. We didn't host an online version of our community meeting last month because we had an in-person annual meeting September 28th in Solon. Some of you also were there, so thank you for attending. If you were unable to attend, we host them every year in September, typically towards the end of the month. You get a lot of really good updates about what the coalition has been doing in the past year. I have an annual report, and then this last year, just a month ago, we got to hear from Dr. Jerry Anthony, who had received the Housing Impact Award for 2023 and his commitment to service of housing justice locally and then also abroad. We've been trucking away on some AARP community grants for ADUs. Are those Lego competitions that you've been seeing. Solon just posted that we're going to be at one of their library events and doing a story time associated with building for accessory dwelling units, backyard apartments, granny pods, whatever you want to call them. They're a nice addition to any community to have an additional housing stock and also an age in place initiative, hence why AARP is involved. Some of you also were invited or had seen that we conducted an affordable housing bus tour circa homecoming. That was in conjunction with the Housing Trust Fund of Johnson County. So thank you, Ellen, for all of your support and coordination of that event. And then also thank you, CVI Bank and Trust, for providing us that opportunity to be able to go around and highlight some amazing projects that have happened for affordable housing and with some local investment dollars for projects within about the past 5 years is what we were highlighting. We plan on doing more affordable housing bus tours in the near future. If that's something you as an individual or your agency or your neighbor or friend would like to be involved with, send me an email, send me a text, and I'll make sure that you're staying in the loop. Another thing we did was we sponsored with the Iowa Manufactured Residents Network and with Center for Worker Justice, a Know Your Rights Forum for manufactured housing residents here in Eastern Iowa. That took place on Tuesday. If you're on my emails, which I don't send too many, but I did send one out that had that event, today's event, and then today's later event. Again, if you don't get my emails, I would highly recommend that you sign up for them. I can send that link to you all in the chat later, but it just kind of keeps you updated. Again, people that do receive it, I don't spam you too much, right? It's not too much, but it does give you some really great highlights and events of local housing initiatives. Another thing to keep on everybody's radar, we have some local elections coming up, not on Tuesday, but the following Tuesday, the 7th. There's no school that day, so hopefully you can also teach your kids that local elections matter in terms of especially affordable housing and housing policy. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, but vote for individuals that are in support of affordable housing is what I can say. We do a lot around here in the coalition, myself, the board, and then other members and volunteers. programs and projects that we've been working on specifically. We've been looking at the Gather, Iowa development, which is at the corner of First Ave and Second Street in Coralville, Old Taco John's district. You catch my drift. That's going to have a redevelopment plan in the books that has been approved by their city council. So I have a great group of Grinnell College students that have been doing a mini survey. They're still in the development phase of the survey of seeing who lives there, why do they live there, and what they would need to be able to come back to that place once that redevelopment does occur. So I'm pretty excited. The students are wonderful to engage with. Take a little bit of time, but it's definitely well worth it. And we're training the next level of local leaders, advocates, and policy supporters. So if you want to learn more about that or anything else that I talked about or that Simon talks about later, send me an email. The ARPA deadline is coming up for having to commit some funds, both municipality funds, so City of Iowa City, I'm looking at you, and then also Johnson County. We need affordable housing. There's a big chunk of money there, and so we're going to do our best to use that in a wise fashion. City of Iowa City has been looking at their planning zoning amendments to be able to have a greater supply and different type of stock of housing. It is going to be onto the third consideration from council. It has passed the first two considerations for implementation. But as always, I push people to be involved with their local policies and be informed about what's going on. Personally, we do education, advocacy, and also partnerships over here at the coalition. So I've been working on leveraging, connecting, and making better and stronger partnerships for housing assistance providers or providers that are tangent or involved in other basic human rights in the county. If you are with an agency, want to have a little bit more support, don't know who to talk to about X, Y, or Z project that you're having in your back pocket, I have a lot of meetings and I absolutely love them. I learn more, the community gains more, and if we can have stronger partnerships and not working in silos, I really think that's a game changer. Last thing that we have been working on, and it was just approved by our board yesterday, is we're going to do a Giving Tuesday campaign. Giving Tuesday is a national day of giving, the Tuesday following Thanksgiving. Gives y'all your Turkey Day, gives y'all your Black Friday, gives you your Cyber Monday. And then Tuesday is where you're going to be able to support local nonprofits and other initiatives in the area. Our campaign this year, which I will be highlighting through social media, will be starting on November 1st. And we're going to be asking y'all to donate Menards rebates. I don't know how many of you go to Menards, but they give you those little receipts at the bottom of your receipt. It's often for 11%. It's like a cashback bonus. We are going to be collecting those at the coalition. So you can bring them to me, mail them to me, and there'll be more information, as I said, starting November 1st. But we're going to distribute those to our partners that are members of our board. So we have many, many local nonprofits that are housing assistance providers or housing service providers that can greatly benefit from those stacked rebates. Menards has everything from building materials to toilet paper to even dog food and shampoo. So I am going to encourage you, if you have some sitting in a drawer that aren't going to be used, or if you have a receipt that you just haven't turned in yet, we can do that for you over here at the coalition, and then we can make sure that it goes to those housing assistance providers and housing service providers. So I guess that's part of the requests as well. But now I get to hop to the actual formal requests, is that we have 3 committees that are pretty active now. They meet on Fridays, each Friday at noon. Our rental committee just revamped. Simon Andrew, who is right here today, is our chair. We have a home ownership committee meeting as well. That is chaired by Simon Haas, executive director over at Iowa Valley Habitat for Humanity. And then we have a newly established membership committee. So we're wanting to grow. That is our #1 word of this new fiscal year. We are growing our membership base. We are growing our initiatives. We are growing our outreach. And so we have a committee defined just for that. If you're interested, we are still looking for new members of all of these committees. You don't have to be a paying member of the coalition to be on a committee, though we'd like you to be. But we're looking for diverse voices, different perspectives, and a little bit of oomph and gusto that can carry us forward. So again, if you're interested, the membership committee meets the first Friday of the month at noon on Zoom. The home ownership committee meets the second Friday, noon, Zoom. And the rental is the third Friday noon Zoom. I think you're seeing the pattern because you are also here noon, fourth Friday on Zoom. So thank you all for being here. We still have our Ray-Ban shirts as well. We receive a portion of the proceeds through Ray-Ban for affordable housing shirts. And I didn't even plan it today, but guys, I'm wearing one. I'm rocking one today. It's got a cute little house on it. It does have one that's a cross-stitch design that says everyone deserves a home sweet home. Thank you, Talia Miller from the Housing Fellowship for that awesome design. She really rocks it. So if you're interested in that, we always have those in our emails as well. Whew, that's a lot. That's a lot of updates, but I hadn't seen you all in like 2 months. So I give myself a little bit of grace too. As always, we would not be able to do what we do either on Zoom, in person, working with tenants, working with potential homeowners without the support of our sponsors. So I have to give a little bit of time, especially where it's due. Thank you all for our sponsors that do join us on a yearly basis to be able to carry our initiatives forward and to, you know, push our vision that everybody deserves a home of their choice in the neighborhood of their choice. So thank you. But now, the man of the hour, I get to actually introduce Mr. Simon Andrew of the Housing Fellowship. He was appointed as the Executive Director of the Housing Fellowship in February of 2020, so took on a hard task right in the middle of a pandemic start. The Housing Fellowship, if you are not aware, it's a nonprofit organization that aims to provide long-term affordable housing to income-qualified families in the Iowa City area. So Simon was appointed here in February. He holds a master's degree in public policy from the University of Northern Iowa, and then also a bachelor's degree in political science from the University of Iowa. Go Hawks. He's a certified economic development professional through the National Development Council and a certified ADA coordinator through the University of Missouri. Prior experiences also include positions in budget and management at the City of Iowa City. So some of you may know Simon from there. It's also where I stole his headshot. Volunteer experience also includes positions at the Greater Cedar Rapids Community Foundation and building homes with Habitat for Humanity in Uganda. Simon serves on the board of directors for the Housing Trust Fund of Johnson County, and then he graciously serves as the treasurer of the coalition as well. So thank you for your service, Simon, and we are excited to learn more about the Housing Fellowship today on our monthly community meeting.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessica, so much for that introduction, and thank you all for joining us. I will just take a second while I share my screen here, but I do see Art Floss on the line from CBI Bank and Trust, and so I want to mention CBI's generous sponsorship of the coalition, and particularly the bus tour that happened earlier this month. Feel free to interrupt me at any time with questions, comments, clarifications, or if I'm breaking up too much, technology being what it is. Jessica, can you see my screen all right? Can you see the PowerPoint? Good deal. All right. So as Jessica said, I am Simon Andrew. I work for the Housing Fellowship. We are a nonprofit rental housing developer, provider, manager. We have 207 properties scattered throughout Johnson County, which amounts to about 650 tenants. That number will float from year to year as we add and sell properties. We are predominantly, our inventory is predominantly single family homes, duplexes, and townhomes. We do have 2 apartment buildings, one 33-unit building on Dubuque Street and a 12-unit on the far east side of town. But aside from those 2 buildings, we're pretty well scattered throughout neighborhoods, integrated into neighborhoods. So on this slide, you can see a visual with a pin of all of our units in there, and it's scattered throughout Iowa City, Coralville, and North Liberty. We do, our units span families of very different incomes. We own units that rent from as low as roughly $400 a month all the way up to market rate or approaching market rate. The kind of wheelhouse for us is in that 30 to 60% of area median income, but the income levels and rent levels will be capped depending on the source, which I'll try not to get too far into the weeds with that today, but I can talk about that a little bit too. We are an award-winning community housing development organization. I know Jessica doesn't like the CHODO acronym, but that is the acronym that is used for that. We're really proud of that designation. We go through annual vetting with the City of Iowa City, the state of Iowa, and the federal government housing and urban development to make sure that we're meeting certain guidelines with our tenants, our compliance with funding sources and how our board is. This is an annual look that we have representation from tenants in the low-income community on our board, and that we're not too heavily managed by public organizations. It's one of the requirements is that we're purely a private organization. We carry out our mission by really doubling down on low interest loans or no interest loans. We depend on a lot of public support there. But we try and that we are different from other landlords in a lot of ways, which I'll get to in a minute. But fundamentally here, what we're talking about is the affordability of these homes. We certainly feel like we provide a lot of benefit to our tenants beyond that. As you know, Johnson County is the most expensive place to live in Iowa. Over half the renters in Johnson County are either cost burdened or severely cost burdened. And those terms are defined by the federal government. You'd say that cost burden, you're paying more than 30% of your income for housing. Severely cost burden would be more than half of your income going to housing. And so over half the renters in Johnson County fall into that category, which doesn't leave families with the financial resources to meet all of the other basic needs of families. Nationwide, this is a huge issue, a statistic there to that end. And then a final statistic about Johnson County with very low income percentage of our population, especially if you have children in the home. Of course, in Johnson County, that's going to be a struggle to find suitable housing for your family, not just housing that you can afford, but that is well maintained and safe and decent and near the school or transportation or whatever other needs your family has. Impact of housing, again, goes far beyond family's finances. There is growing evidence, and this is really Jessica's wheelhouse. I feel silly trying to talk about it, but huge impacts on physical health, which seems intuitive to all of us, but the data grows every year in terms of how fundamental those impacts are. Education, I mentioned that we like to be scattered throughout the community. We like to have homes in a number of elementary school district areas. If a family is losing their housing for whatever reason, say their household size grows, the rent at their current apartment increases, number of reasons why a family would need to move. They want to keep their kids in the same school. If kids are bouncing around from school to school each year or mid-year, that has profound impacts on their educational attainment. So that is one of our goals too, that goes again beyond affordability per se. And we are strong contributors to the local economy. There's a statistic there, but in general, our investment in homes, we're not only employing contractors and maintenance workers, but it also has a positive impact on the property values of the neighborhoods in which we own homes, especially nonprofit owned and public owned affordable housing projects are shown statistically to contribute to the property values of the neighborhood. They are generally maintained at a higher level. Maintained as attractive contributors to the neighborhoods in which we exist. Go to the next slide. There we go. So again, I noted that we need to maintain in order to keep our units affordable. As you know, principal interest is a big topic right now. Interest rates increase, apartments will become more expensive, and we're going to see that staggered through the next few years. Most commercial loans have a renewal every 5 years, so a lot of apartment buildings, the debt on those haven't seen their interest rates on their debt reflected in current interest rate increases, but that will be coming on a rolling basis over the next 5 years. So as we see those interest payments from landlords grow, we are going to see rents increase commensurately to have those landlords meet their debt obligations. So it's really important to us that we keep our debt level low, and we largely accomplish that through immense support from particularly the city of Iowa City, but a lot of public leaders. Most of our houses are acquired with 0% low interest loans that come through federal financing that flows through the city and the state of Iowa. We also depend on a number of loans from the Housing Trust Fund of Johnson County. We we wouldn't exist as we do without Ellen's organization and all of the loans that they have provided us over the years. So we're still going to have the normal, vacancy rate, maintenance costs, but you take out that cash flow, profit incentive, and reduce that interest rate, and that goes a long way in order to allow us to keep our homes full. We have a very small team for the number of units that we maintain, but particularly Tashandra and Ross are very skilled in their field. So Tashandra is our Chief Operating Officer. She's been with the organization more than 15 years and is one of the most skilled person at what she does in our community. Her knowledge of tax credit projects, the complexities of federal reporting are unmatched here locally. Ross, we were very lucky to be able to hire VHL International in a very, high stress, high profile job for decades. And so we're really fortunate to have those two on staff. That's not a luxury most organizations of our size. But those positions are largely funded by operational support by our supporters. So the United Way gives us operational support, and we are able to access some operational support from federal funds through the city of Iowa City that really allows us to pay the salaries needed to attract employees of that caliber. But of course, our whole staff is very skilled. Jessica mentioned Talia already. She's been a great addition to our team this year and has provided a number of benefits already. Tammy has been here for more than a decade as well, is very skilled in project. So again, small team for what we do, but very skilled. I noted a number of things that set us apart beyond just the affordability of our units. I'll talk about what we do with the equity with a new acquisition that we're in the process of completing. We also work more closely with our tenants than a typical landlord. This was very important during early on in the pandemic when there was federal support flowing through a number of organizations, primarily in the state of Iowa, which at times could be very difficult to access. Folks come to the table with varying degrees of comfort with doing online programs and applications, and we would sit down individually with each of our tenants, helping them access that support. And there are a number of local programs that we are very familiar with that we can help tenants access. But those funders frequently don't send out those checks the same day. With that IFA program for rental assistance, we had tenants waiting for upwards of 8 months for that funding. And any other landlord, not any other, but most other landlords in the community are not going to wait that 8 months to get their rent payment. So being a mission-driven organization, it's antithetical to why we're here to be kicking people out of their units for lack of income. And especially when we know that we're optimistic that that funding's coming in, will allow tenants to carry balances for a lot of most landlords are able to. And we're able to do that with because of the support of all of our local supporters and agencies. We also place a lot of tenants from other agencies, local agencies. Early on in the pandemic, we donated the use of 5 units to the Domestic Violence Intervention Program as they were trying to decrease the population in their communal facility for safety pandemic. We were able to give them free of charge the use of some units that we already had vacant at the time. We also rented a unit to Shelter House for a year when they were rebuilding after they had a fire in one of their units. So we're really proud of our collaborations with agencies, feeling like we're on the same team, being able to address the needs of our community. We're also super lenient with household size, background checks. We have some federal requirements depending on the funding source with what can be present on a background check and still be able to rent to that family. But those are few. In most cases, we're able to be more lenient with that than most landlords would be. And household size, Jessica's heard me tell this story a million times, but we recently leased up a unit to a family that was losing their family or losing their housing because they had put them over occupancy for their current landlord's policy, and they didn't have another unit to go to. We were able to essentially reserve the unit for them for a couple of months while their lease ran up and get them into housing, which, you know, exceeded our typical occupancy, but we're able to be lenient with that more so than most rental agencies. And last point on here, we are able to be nimble based on local current conditions. We can respond to, for instance, changes in the housing choice voucher program. We're seeing applicants from much larger families than we're used to. And many, if not most of those, are voucher holders whose current landlords are not renewing their leases purely because of the fact that they hold a voucher. So we've been able to acquire a number of larger homes the past year to be able to respond to that. And that's something that we're very proud of as well. I mentioned our partners. We couldn't do what we do without all of our partners. I mentioned some of the service agencies just now. We depend on a lot of funding and support from especially the city of Iowa City and Johnson County and the Housing Trust Fund of Johnson County, which in turn gets a good chunk of their funding from the city and Johnson County. Number of federal and state agencies are primary private lending institutions, which we hope to expand. At the current moment, our First Interstate Bank, previously Great Western, and Hills Bank is the limited partner in one of our tax credit projects, our largest project. But of course, we employ a number of local contractors, realtors, attorneys. Every project that we're involved in needs an attorney and a real estate agent, an appraiser, and of course, contractors to build or rehab those units. So we have a number that we tend to work with most often, but I mean, dozens and dozens here that we work with on a daily basis. Mentioned some of the benefits to nonprofit ownership. The long-term investment is something that I really try and key in on anytime I'm kind of presenting at a high level of who we are. You'll hear me say over and over again that our community needs more housing at just about every price point in every neighborhood. The lack of housing is hitting everyone to different degrees, and you know, I would tell you that we're 10,000 units short of where we need to be to actually serve the population of our community. So that being said, I'm fully supportive of investments, whether it's in private affordable housing projects or publicly owned or what have you. We just need more housing across the board. However, a mission-driven organization with that public funding, that benefit stretches out much farther. You know, we can have a 20-year compliance period with any affordable housing publicly funded project, but at the end of that compliance, if it is a mission-driven organization, all of that equity earned over those 20 years gets reinvested into affordable housing in the community. You know, that profit margin on that other slide that I mentioned isn't in the equity. So all of those long-term proceeds continue to be invested in affordable housing. I had already mentioned the positive impacts on property values to the sustained quality management of the property. And I already mentioned our flexibility with tenants struggling to meet their financial obligations. You know, a mission-driven organization or a public organization is going to have a lot more incentive to keep folks in their house. That's why we exist. You know, and if that means a little bit of short-term pain, well, we try and identify funding for that pain. That's our mission. That's what we're going to do. Of course, in any given case, there's a limit to what can be done for any given family, but that's what we do. That's why we're here. And that's one of the benefits in investing in us as opposed to other programs. Now the fun stuff. This is the most exciting program that we've done in many, many years. Jessica mentioned an event this afternoon at 3 p.m. at 724 Ronalds Street. It's on the north side. This was a lot that had a house that was derelict for a number of years, abandoned, not just an eyesore, but a dangerous property. The garage had caught on fire by trespassers that had broken into the garage, roof caving in, animals, what have you. So the city condemned the house and was able to demolish it. And they built looking for, okay, what we're going to do with this lot. Builders Association, the Vocational Training Council there, the City of Iowa, or the Iowa City Community School District, and the City of Iowa City that reached out to us for a partnership on this law. So the school district hired an instructor for the student build program. So we're going to have, we currently have students on the site learning the trades and building a house that will ultimately be used for affordable housing, new construction, historic district, energy efficient, LEED certification, training the next generation of skilled tradespeople. This project is really the perfect project as far as I'm concerned for how we want all of our public agencies working together and helping to fund both neighborhood stabilization and affordable housing. So we were thrilled that the student build program was coming back, whether or not we were involved in finding skilled tradespeople to complete rehabs for us or new construction. And any contractor will tell you this, it's a challenge. And they're very good jobs. They're it is an exciting program to be coming back. And one of the kind of exciting things for me about it is just knowing that these students that we meet, at least one of them's going to be driving by 50 years from now talking to their grandkids like, hey, I built that house. And hopefully that sparks an interest in the trades and a permanent career there. So hope to see you all at 3 p.m. today on site there. But of course, don't hesitate to reach out to me with any questions or any of us here at the fellowship. Any questions, comments, support, concerns, but we are extremely excited by that. So we have to give big thanks to the City of Iowa City, not just for the lot, but for additional funding, to the Home Builders Association and the Vocational Training Council for the idea and the providing contractors oversight. JCAHC is the general contractor on the project. Big thanks to the Housing Trust Fund, provided a zero interest loan. $50,000 for the project, and First Interstate Bank is providing a $10,000 grant. So, yeah, number of supporters there. Recent acquisitions. I just wanted to mention this in terms of our ability to be nimble. These are 4 houses that we've acquired in the last year, all larger houses than we typically have. The first one there was a rehab to Habitat for Humanity. So again, another great local agency. 2424 Catskill is a good example of using equity from previous home sales to reinvest in affordable housing. Speed up a little bit here, leave some time for questions. So this is what happens with equity when you're a mission-driven organization. We owned a house on Wayne Avenue. Previous tenant Jessica can attest to the state of this house. It was in really bad shape. It needed at least $50,000 in rehab. Given the size and the condition of the house, even after that $50,000 investment, we weren't going to be renting it for much more than any private landlord would rent that house. Just based on the condition, age, size of the house, it's affordable by market. There is naturally occurring affordable housing. Not all affordable housing needs to be subsidized. So we came to the conclusion that we weren't bringing anything to the table by owning that house, and that we would be better off investing that $50,000 needed for rehab plus the equity in that house, which was roughly $125,000, and investing it in a nicer home that meets the current needs better in terms of size, neighborhood, plan. So haven't closed on it yet. I'm trying not to get too excited too early. We have the inspection on Monday, so these things can, always fall through, but it's at 319 South Westminster. It's on the corner of Court Street. It will be our biggest house. We don't own any 5-bedroom houses, and I think this one technically could be a 6, but we're going to call it a 5. It's the most expensive acquisition we've ever done, but we were able to acquire that because of an investment 20 years ago by the community in that house on Wayne. So again, when you invest in the Housing Fellowship, you are investing in affordable housing in Johnson County. It's not for the 20-year compliance period, it is forever. So we're expected to close on this house next month. Other great things about it, it's close to Lemmy, close to City High, it's on a bus line across the street from a park. It's on a corner lot, it's in fantastic condition. These are all things that we look at when we're shopping around for homes. It is not just the affordability piece of it, but how the family who lives in that home are going to navigate their daily lives. What school their kids are to go to, how are they going to get to work, what where their kids are going to play. That is all a component of how we decide where we want to buy houses, site new construction, and how we best can serve our family and the community. I've been including this note for a couple of years because I liked it so much. This one really, she was so appreciative. This was December of 2020, actually. She was moving in, but she had about a week. And it was the week of Christmas, and she was going to be homeless. And so we were able to not just find her a place to stay, we paid to get her out of her lease with her previous landlord. It was condition safety issues were the reason why she had, but we wrote a $4,000 check to her landlord. We're able to identify funding for that for us and get her moved into our brand new construction project that week. So she was very, very appreciative of that, and that's really what keeps us going here. So, get enough derechos coming through, that can really beat staff down. It's hard for us to process this, but this came on the heels of that, and it's really what gives us the satisfaction in our jobs and makes us love working here. We had a similar 2024 Catskill that I mentioned back here. It's the living room on the bottom right corner there. That was another family. They had, I think, 3 weeks to find new housing. 9 kids. At the time she applied, she had 8 kids, but was about ready to give birth to the 9th. They, again, were going to be homeless. We were able to accelerate the closing on Catskill. At the time, that was our largest house, a little bit smaller than Westminster. But we were able to get her moved in right away. And that's that nimbleness that I was talking about, our ability to respond to. So that is the end of my spiel here. I think I left a little bit of time for questions, but questions, comments, me or Jessica or any of our funders? And I have a whole other
I don't have a
slide
question. I just want to say thank you so much for everything that the Housing Fellowship has done to make that house possible. It's been a long time coming, and we're just really pleased that it is actually happening. And I'm looking forward to. I brought my mud boots, so gonna go and tromp around the work zone today.
Yeah, we love that. Thank you so much, Carol and the whole Buildings Association. That project is not happening without really the idea and y'all support. So thank you so much. I did not mention on that site, we will have another house starting next year. So the lot was big enough to subdivide. The second house will be bigger than this one. It's 2 bedrooms. So yeah, 2 houses out of the deal, and we're hoping we can keep it rolling every year.
I have a question.
Yeah, absolutely. I care.
So Simon, I was talking to a friend about affordable housing, and she asked a question. She said, has it always been like this? Has it always been thus? Or is affordable housing a relatively new concern for communities?
Sure, it's definitely not a new concern. It definitely has been exacerbated in the last 10 to 15 years. Jerry Anthony at the Trust Fund Board meeting this morning was talking about nationally building starts since the recession in 07-08 being roughly half of what they were prior to that. And there'll be a number of things that go into that, whether it's material costs, local zoning can have an effect on supply there, land costs going up, and yeah, a number of factors that go to that. So I would say that it's exacerbated the last 15 years, but no, it's always been an issue. Most of these programs, like the federal tax credit program, low income housing tax credits, was established with tax reform in 1986. A lot of the HUD programs, a lot of the HUD funding was established in the late 60s, 1970s. So I think CDBG and home programs were largely the 1970s. And we've kind of evolved our understanding over the years. A lot of that funding in the 60s went to very large, kind of homogeneous income projects that we learned maybe aren't always the right answer depending on the community. That's part of the reason why we kind of lean into the scattered site concept. But yeah, it's always been a problem, but it's definitely much worse. And I would say that as the income gap has exacerbated in the last 15, 20 years, that's a large contributor to it too. So it's definitely worse than it's been, but yeah, always been a problem.
Thank you.
And again, what we're seeing now is the difference in the need isn't just the affordability piece, but just in the last couple of years, the biggest thing's been household size. And again, I think that has largely to do with the legislative change of landlords being able to legally discriminate based on source of income. Prior to January of 2023, in Iowa City, at least, it was part of the Iowa City Human Rights Ordinance that you were not able to discriminate against a family based on source of income exactly like if it was race or ethnicity or sexual orientation or what have you. State of Iowa a couple of years ago didn't go into effect until this year, but took away cities' ability to regulate that piece. And so we have a number of families coming in whose current landlords have said, we're not renewing your lease because you have a voucher. Which to me, it's the most dependable source of income that we have is voucher payments. You know, even beyond negative perception, if you've already had a family living there a couple of years, you know they're a good tenant. It seems ridiculous to me that you would have that policy, but especially for larger companies, you know, you're going to have policies based on, you know, household size or what have you. And yeah, some are going to have more flexibility than others there. If anybody ever wants more detail, I deleted the slides for today on the ins and outs of how we fund each of these. Sometimes it seems pretty obtuse until you get into specific projects and funded what and why we're required to do or not do different things. But that gets pretty, as dry as I am when I'm speaking at a high level, that gets much drier pretty quickly. So I left that out for today, but it's what we do and we love talking about it. So if anybody ever wants more detail, don't hesitate to reach out.
Any other questions, comments, excited thoughts about our 3 p.m. visit to Ronalds Street?
Well, since you're inviting more comments, Jessica, I guess I would throw out there that it's just every time I listen to a presentation or you have an expert on the month-end meeting, it's just great to hear about the collaboration between the DVAP or the Housing Trust or the Fellowship or Affordable Housing Coalition. It's just great to see everybody working together. It's really is very, very, very impressive. So. And then obviously when you've got the ribbon cutting that we'll go to this afternoon, to see projects like that come to fruition and to know there's another one in the hopper. I mean, you can't say enough great things. So everybody that's involved, thank you. It's phenomenal.
Thank you, Art, for supporting and always being here as well. We will be seeing the site today, getting a feel of the area. A lot of the neighbors and the neighborhood association is excited about this. Simon has heard it, I've heard it, and others. There's not a full building there yet, but we will do the walk around a full building with the booties on to protect the new nice floors in the spring, right, Simon? Putting it on your calendar already. Not gonna pick a date.
Yeah, a little early for the date, but yeah, next spring, summer.
Wonderful.
Given it's a school district calendar, we have some pretty tight time.
I was going to say, I do believe that GT's goal is to have the house on the Parade of Homes in June.
Good deal.
Wonderful. Anything else? If not, I'm gonna always say thank you, thank you, thank you for dedicating your time I know you could be doing other things on this nice Friday afternoon, but you spent it with us and we graciously respect that. And I want to say thank you again to Simon and the Housing Fellowship for their commitment to preserving long-term affordable housing options for our neighbors, for our friends, for our coworkers, for anybody that needs it within our community. So thank you very much, Simon, for taking your time today. And I will see Simon and many of you at 3 o'clock. So make sure to join us. We're just going to have a short program, but it is really neat to be able to see where this exciting partnership home with the students on site as well is located within such an established neighborhood that we all know and love. Got to do the plug, become a member of the coalition. It's super easy to do. We're looking to grow. That's our word of the year. So please grow with us, continue to attend our events, continue to share our social media and our newsletters, and be well.